Okay, so get this. A child in California might have gotten bird flu and from drinking raw milk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we got to unpack this one, especially because we've got a Reddit thread that is blowing up about a CNN article on this whole thing.
Interesting.
And we've got excerpts from the article itself. So we've got like the official news and we've got the fiery opinions. And this is the deep dive after all. So we're going to dive deep.
I love it.
So,
I think what's really fascinating about this is the timing.
okay.
Because we are smack dab in the middle of a pretty intense bird flu outbreak.
Yeah.
And this case is sort of like throwing fuel in the fire of this already kind of heated raw milk debate that's been going on.
Okay, so raw milk, it's controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Big time.
Some people think it's like this health miracle, and other people think it's like a one-way ticket to food poisoning city.
Exactly. And this case really brings those two sides, I think, into sharp focus.
Yeah.
Because if this child's illness is actually confirmed as bird flu, it could have like huge implications.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just for, the raw milk movement, but potentially for public health in general.
Right.
So,
Intrigued yet?
Yeah.
I thought so.
definitely.
All right, so let's start with the Reddit thread because, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
It is such a mixed bag of reactions.
Totally. I mean, right off the bat, you see this whole spectrum of opinions.
Yeah.
Some people are genuinely worried about this child.
Yeah.
Others are making light of the situation.
Totally.
Some even seem to view this as like a Darwinian experiment in action.
It's true. Like, some of the comments were just like, well, what did they expect?
Right.
Which I thought was a little harsh.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, it really shows just how differently people approach risk.
Absolutely. And there's also this recurring theme throughout the thread of like the raw milk movement,
Oh, yeah.
with people very passionately defending their right to drink unpasteurized milk.
Right.
They're claiming that it's healthier and it's
Mhm.
more natural.
Okay, but hold on. Before we get too deep into the raw milk movement, can we just get like a quick science lesson on pasteurization?
Sure.
For those of us who don't have like a PhD in dairy.
Absolutely. So pasteurization is basically the process of heating milk to a specific temperature for a certain amount of time to kill off any harmful bacteria.
Okay.
And it was honestly a game changer back in the day.
Really?
Before pasteurization, milk was a really common source of all sorts of nasty diseases like tuberculosis,
Wow.
typhoid fever, all sorts of things.
So this is kind of a big deal.
It was a huge deal. It revolutionized public health.
Wow.
Now, proponents of raw milk will argue that pasteurization destroys nutrients.
Okay.
And while it is true that some nutrients are slightly reduced during the process,
Okay.
the losses are pretty minimal and can easily be made up for through a balanced diet.
Okay, so like pasteurization is basically the milk superhero,
I love it.
keeping us safe from those microscopic villains.
Pretty much it's a safety net that we've all come to really rely on. But despite the risks, some people still choose raw milk.
Yeah.
They cite potential benefits like better digestion or like boosted immunity.
But there are risks, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're not just talking about like a little tummy trouble here.
No, we're talking serious infections.
Right.
From bacteria like listeria Campbell-Bacter, salmonella E. coli.
Okay, enough scary bacteria names for one day.
Right.
Let's switch gears. Let's get into the specifics of this child's case.
Yeah, so the CNN article says that the child started experiencing fever and vomiting after drinking raw milk from a brand called Raw Farm.
Raw farm. Okay.
Yeah, and they've tested positive for influenza A,
Okay.
but they're still waiting on confirmation for H5N1 bird flu.
Okay, so it's not 100% certain that it is bird flu.
Not yet, no.
Okay. And Raw Farm had to recall their milk and shut down production after bird flu was found in their products?
That's right.
What's the deal with that?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like bird flu contamination in dairy products is a very real possibility. Right. The CDC is actually currently investigating this case
Okay.
and trying to determine like how widespread the contamination might be.
And to make matters worse, California has seen a bunch of bird flu cases this year,
Right.
mainly in farm workers.
Yeah,
But if this child's case is confirmed, it would be a major shift.
it would. It would indeed, because it would suggest that bird flu can potentially jump from birds to cows to humans
Wow.
through the consumption of raw milk.
Right.
And that's a scenario that has public health officials very concerned.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a potential bird flu case, a raw milk recall, and a whole lot of anxiety brewing on the internet.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's dive back into that Reddit thread for a minute, because there were some pretty hilarious comments.
Oh, the internet never disappoints when it comes to dark humor.
Right, like one person said that this was just the prequel to the bird flu zombie apocalypse.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
That's great.
Like, it seems like some people are already prepping for a world ruled by, like, feathery overlords.
Sure.
But all jokes aside, some comments did raise a really important point,
Okay.
and that is that regulations are often written in blood.
That's a really powerful statement.
Yeah.
It reminds us that like these seemingly mundane regulations that we often take for granted are often born out of tragedy.
Yeah.
They exist to prevent history from repeating itself.
Right. It's kind of like Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and like the whole meatpacking industry reforms that happened after that.
Exactly. That book exposed those horrific conditions and really sparked this whole movement for change.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we just can't get complacent when it comes to food safety.
Speaking of history repeating itself, another commenter mentioned a book called The Poison Squad,
Oh, yeah.
which is about, I think, the early days of food safety in the U.S.
Yeah, the Poison Squad tells the story of Dr. Harvey Wiley, who was a chemist who led this group of volunteers who basically ate poison
What?
to test the safety of food additives in the early 1900s.
Wow.
And their work actually led to the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906,
Oh, wow.
which was a landmark piece of legislation that really laid the foundation for modern food safety regulations.
Wow, talk about dedication.
I know.
These guys were literally putting their lives on the line for safer food.
It shows how far we've come, but also how much work still needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I think this current situation with raw milk and bird flu is just this stark reminder that food safety is an ongoing battle.
Okay, so we've got the raw milk debate, a potential bird flu case, and a whole lot of history to remind us why food safety matters.
And before we get to like what all this means for you,
Okay.
let's take a closer look at just how widespread bird flu is in the dairy industry,
Okay.
because it's actually pretty alarming.
Okay, hit me with the facts.
So one Redditor shared an avian flu dashboard update
Okay.
that showed that over 50% of California's registered dairy herds have confirmed cases of H5N1.
Oh my God.
I know. And then back in August, researchers actually found bird flu fragments
Wait, hold up. Bird flu fragments in milk on store shelves.
in 17% of dairy samples from grocery store shelves.
That's kind of freaky.
It is concerning, but it's important to clarify that these were just fragments of the virus,
Okay.
not the live virus itself.
So it's not like we're all going to turn into bird-human hybrids after a glass of milk.
Not quite. Pasteurization effectively kills the bird flu virus.
Okay.
So commercially produced milk and cheese are still considered safe to consume.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah.
But if pasteurization kills the virus, how did it get into the dairy cows in the first place?
Well, bird flu spreads primarily through contact with infected wild birds.
Right.
And the U.S. has been battling this massive bird flu outbreak since like last spring,
Yeah.
which has just devastated poultry farms.
And now it seems like it's impacting dairy cows as well.
Exactly. And that brings us back to this child's case.
Okay.
It raises the question, could drinking raw milk from infected cows actually lead to human cases of bird flu?
Right.
And could this lead to mutations that make the virus more transmissible between humans?
No, that's a scary thought.
Right.
Okay, so this is getting intense.
Yeah.
We got a whole lot more to cover, from potential consequences to the official response. But before we get too deep, let's take a moment to gather our thoughts.
Yeah, good idea.
We'll be back in a flash. Okay, we're back. And before the break, we were talking about the potential for bird flu to spread through raw milk.
Right.
And, the possibility of a pandemic if it mutates.
Yeah. And the Reddit thread is definitely reflecting that anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of comments about, this being like a slow motion train wreck.
Oh, God.
It's like everyone saw it coming.
Yeah, there was one that said, like, hard times are coming. Hopefully this will be a lesson learned.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like tapping into those, like, deep-seated fears
Right.
we all have about, like, the world going sideways.
It makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
In today's world, something starting small can go global so fast.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of vulnerability really feeds into the anxiety we're seeing online.
It's true, but it's not all doom and gloom. Some people are, finding the humor in it.
Of course.
Remember that comment about everybody getting bird powers if things go south?
Oh, yeah.
Like bird lawyers and bird doctors. I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be great. But jokes aside, there's a big question looming here.
Yeah.
What can be done to prevent this from becoming a full-blown outbreak?
Right.
So the CNN article mentioned that the CDC is investigating the child's case.
Yeah.
And the USDA is ramping up their milk testing.
Right.
But what about us regular folks? What should we be doing?
Well, California health officials have been pretty clear.
Okay.
Avoid raw milk and other unpasteurized dairy products,
Right.
especially with the bird flu situation being what it is.
Which, if we're being honest, is probably good advice in general.
Yeah.
I mean, pasteurization has been like the standard for ages.
It's there for a reason.
And it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. And while some people believe that pasteurization kills like all the good stuff in milk,
Right.
studies show that that's just not true.
Not true.
The nutrient losses are tiny
Tiny.
and easily replaceable with a balanced diet.
Easily.
Okay, so like those supposed benefits of raw milk boosting immunity,
Yeah.
there are safer ways to achieve that, right?
Absolutely. Eating a balanced diet, getting enough sleep, managing stress,
Yeah.
all proven ways to support your immune system
Yeah.
without risking a nasty infection.
Okay, so raw milk's off the menu, got it.
Okay.
But what about other dairy products?
Yeah.
Cheese, yogurt, ice cream.
Right.
Should we be stressing about those too?
That's a great question. And the good news is that commercially produced cheese, yogurt, and ice cream
Okay.
are also pasteurized.
Okay.
So check the label for pasteurized, and you should be good to go.
Pasteurized, our new favorite word.
Yeah.
But back to that Reddit thread for a second.
Okay.
There was some back and forth about personal choice versus public health.
Oh, interesting.
Like some people argue that like, you know, if you're an adult, you should be able to eat whatever you want, risks and all.
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
But it does get a bit more complicated when your choice might impact others.
You mean like if someone gets sick from raw milk and then they spread bird flu to someone who's never even touched the stuff?
Exactly. It's why public health measures like vaccination and food safety regulations are so crucial. It's not just about individual protection. It's about protecting everybody.
It's like that saying, your freedom ends where my nose begins.
Exactly.
Right.
This tension between personal liberty and collective responsibility is this like constant balancing act.
Right.
And this case, I think, really highlights that.
Totally. Okay, so public health's important.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, some people are drawn to raw milk for other reasons.
Sure.
Right? Like this whole natural is better trend.
Definitely. There's this perception that anything processed is bad
Right.
and unprocessed is automatically good.
Right.
And I just think that that's an oversimplification.
Totally. It's not that black and white. You got to look at the specifics.
You got to look at the specifics, exactly.
Right.
I think another factor at play here could be distrust in mainstream medicine
Oh, yeah.
and a preference for alternative health practices.
Which, let's be real, is like all over social media.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
And while there's nothing wrong with, exploring alternative options,
Yeah.
it's crucial to be critical of the information you encounter.
Right.
Not everything labeled as natural or alternative is safe or effective.
So when it comes to your health, maybe skip the internet diagnoses
Yeah.
and consult with a real doctor.
Always a good idea.
Yeah.
They can give you evidence-based advice,
Right.
help you make informed decisions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The raw milk risks the potential bird flu pandemic.
Right.
Personal choices versus public health.
Yep.
It's a multifaceted issue with big implications.
Big implications.
And speaking of implications, remember that raw farm brand
Yeah.
mentioned in the CNN article?
Uh-huh.
The one that had the bird flu contamination?
Yes.
What's their deal?
So Raw Farm is a California-based company specializing in, you guessed it, raw dairy products.
Of course.
And they really market their stuff as naturally healthy and full of good bacteria.
But that good bacteria claim kind of falls apart when you consider the potential for things like, bird flu contamination.
Yeah, and the fact that they had to recall their products and halt production after this bird flu detection speaks volumes.
Totally. It makes you wonder about their safety protocols.
Right.
Like, were they doing enough to prevent this?
That's the question.
Yeah.
The CNN article said that their herd was quarantined, so they knew about the bird flu risk.
But clearly, whatever they were doing wasn't enough to prevent the contamination.
Yeah.
And this could have like a ripple effect on the entire raw milk industry.
How so?
Well, it could lead to tighter regulations and more scrutiny of raw milk producers.
Yeah, it makes sense. The government has a duty to protect public health.
Right.
And this situation shows just how risky unpasteurized dairy can be.
Totally. And with the bird flu threat looming large, I think people might start thinking twice before grabbing that bottle of raw milk.
It could be a turning point in this whole raw milk debate,
Yeah.
pushing more folks towards pasteurized options.
All right, let's go back to that Reddit thread one last time.
Okay.
There were some really interesting discussions about the role of the government in all of this.
Interesting.
Some people were all for stricter regulations,
Right.
while others saw it as like government overreach.
It's a classic debate, isn't it?
It is.
Where do we draw the line between individual freedom and government intervention,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to public health?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
We all want the freedom to make our own choices,
Of course.
but we also want to be protected from harm.
Absolutely. And I think this case just throws those competing desires into sharp relief.
Yeah.
It's not just about milk. It's about, like, this bigger picture.
It's about how we balance individual liberty with the need for collective action to address these like complex challenges. And that's something we're going to continue to grapple with as a society.
And as we've seen from the Reddit thread, there are a lot of different opinions on this.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground on heart. Raw milk risks the possibility of a bird flu pandemic.
Right.
Personal choices versus public health.
Mm.
But what does all of this mean for you, the listener?
Right.
We're going to explore that and leave you with some final thoughts when we come back. Okay, so we're back. And for this final part of our deep dive, we're going to try to bring everything together.
Yeah.
So raw milk, bird flu, and the whole shebang. We've explored the risks, we've gotten into the science, we've looked at all these societal debates that are swirling around this case.
Right.
But now let's bring it home. What does this all mean for you,
Yeah.
listener?
I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to being informed and making choices that are, responsible for yourself and others.
Right.
We've seen from that Reddit thread just how much confusion and misinformation is out there.
Right. Like all those comments about how pasteurization kills all the nutrients in milk.
Right.
It's just not true.
It's just not true.
Exactly. So step one, cut through the noise, get your information from credible sources.
Yeah.
Like the CDC, the FDA, don't just take headlines at face value.
Exactly.
Do a little digging.
Dig a little deeper.
And if you're ever unsure about something, talk to your doctor.
Yes.
They can give you personalized advice based on your health needs and your risk tolerance.
Absolutely. Now, I think this whole case has really sparked a bigger conversation
Yeah.
about personal choice versus public health,
Right.
which is a really tricky balance to strike.
It is. I mean, we all value freedom to make our own choices.
Sure.
About what we eat, what we drink.
Right.
But when those choices have the potential to affect other people,
Yeah.
it gets a lot more complicated.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins.
Right, exactly.
And in this case, choosing to drink raw milk could potentially be putting other people at risk
Yeah.
if it leads to a spread of bird flu.
And that's where those kind of boring food safety regulations come in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they might seem like a hassle sometimes,
Right.
but they exist to protect us all.
Think about it. We've come a long way since the days of the jungle and the poison squad.
It's true.
Those stories remind us that, food safety is something we can never take for granted.
For sure.
It's an ongoing effort. It requires constant vigilance.
Right.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the big takeaway is be informed, make responsible choices.
Yes.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Okay.
If you're passionate about food safety or public health,
Right.
speak up.
Yeah.
Support policies that promote those values.
Yeah.
Hold your elected officials accountable.
Right. You can make a difference.
Yes, you can.
Now, before we wrap things up, we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay, I like it.
In a world that is just bombarded with information,
Right.
the ability to think critically is more important now than ever.
It really is.
Don't just accept everything you read or hear at face value.
Right.
Question those assumptions.
Yeah.
Seek out different perspectives.
Yes.
Evaluate the evidence for yourself.
Absolutely.
Remember, knowledge is power,
Yes.
but only when it's used wisely and responsibly.
So well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.